All right, folks, Tuesday the 22nd of July and things at Celtic are dig this. Not exactly bursting with news, but that doesn't mean there's nothing worth talking about. We did get the signing of Shun Yamada officially unveiled over the weekend, which was a bit of welcome action, but beyond that, it's been eerily quiet on the transfer front. Now that could very well mean that the club are working away silently in the background, pulling the strings without much leaking out. That's not impossible. But this is Celtic we're talking about, and you know as well as I do that when the rumor mill slows down, folks start to panic. And right now a lot of supporters are starting to ask what's going on here. Look, we're used to it. Every transfer window brings a wave of hope and, let's be honest, a decent bit of anxiety. Some fans are already wondering if we're leaving things too late, if we'll be scrambling around come deadline day, or if we'll make the same mistakes we've made before. Patchwork signings that don't quite fit. That familiar anxiety is creeping in. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. There are updates, subtle as they might be, and some developments to break down. Right off the bat, let's talk about that odd little twist involving Luis Montalvo. The Daily Record ran with a story that painted the whole situation in classic tabloid fashion. Buzzwords flying all over the place, everything framed as some dramatic standoff. I mean, honestly, it sounded more like a Netflix thriller than a transfer report. The gist: Celtic made a move, the board's reacting, the players got a massive price tag floating over his head, and the manager's apparently throwing his weight around behind the scenes. Who knows what's real in all that noise, but one thing's for sure. Headlines like that get clicks even if they're light on real info. Still, if you zoom out a bit and look at the big picture, it becomes obvious we're entering a crucial phase of the window. Brendan Rodgers himself said after the weekend's friendly that there's a lot of work still to do, and that he expects reinforcements in certain areas before the window shuts. So that's the word from the man at the helm. He's not pretending the squad's ready. He knows we're not there yet. Let's take a look at where things stand position by position. Starting at the back, goalkeepers. To be fair, I think we're in decent shape here. Kasper Schmeichel might not be the same keeper who was lifting the Premier League trophy at Leicester years ago, but for Celtic he's a solid stopgap with bags of experience. And then you've got young Tobialo Wayemi and Sinisalo in the pipeline. There's a feeling that Sinisalo especially might be groomed to take over the number 1 shirt in the not so distant future. He's a big talent, and getting him minutes in the Cubs could be a smart way to ease him in. So overall, I'd say no urgency in that department. Moving along to right back, and again, I don't think we're crying out for reinforcements there either. Alistair Johnston is a rock, probably the best right back we've had in years, and Tony Ralston is more than an adequate backup. Say what you will, the lad gives 100% every time he's on the park. And from what I've seen in preseason, he's been quietly putting in solid shifts. Not the flashiest, sure, but dependable. So for me, no complaints there. Now left back, that's where things get a bit more intriguing. We've got Kieran Tierney back, and listen, everyone knows what a fully fit Tierney can bring. But what about his cover? That's where Hayato Aramura enters the picture. When he was signed, most folk assumed he'd be a left-sided center back. That's where he played the bulk of his minutes in Japan, but so far Brendan Rodgers has only used him as a left back, not a single minute at center half. Makes you wonder if the gaffer sees him as Tierney's understudy, at least for now. Early impressions, I think he's looked decent. Nothing to get carried away with, it's still early doors. But he's shown enough composure and energy to suggest he can grow into the role. Of course, the real test will come when the competitive matches start, particularly in Europe, or away to tricky Scottish sides. That's when we'll really see what he's made of. But sitting here today, I'd say we can afford to wait and see how that develops. If he keeps progressing, it might turn out that we don't need another left back this summer after all. Tierney and Aramura could be enough, assuming Tierney stays fit, which is always the question with him, isn't it? Center back, though, that's where the alarm bells are starting to ring. We're thin, painfully thin. Cameron Carter-Vickers is the standout, obviously. The guy's a rock. Barely puts a foot wrong, and when you think about it, he's probably the most consistent center half we've had since Virgil van Dijk. That's no small praise, but beside him, that's where it gets dicey. The club still haven't replaced Carl Starfelt properly, and we're one injury away from chaos in that position. Look, you need a partner for Carter-Vickers, not just a warm body, but a real quality defender. Someone who can match his level, or at least come close. Someone Rodgers believes in. Because far too often we've brought in center backs who just don't cut it. They look fine on paper, then fade away because the manager doesn't fancy them, or they've got an error in them. Nerofsky Lagerbielke How many times have we seen this story? So for me, this is priority number one. Sign a proper center back, not another project, not another maybe, a nailed-in starter. If we do that, suddenly you're looking at a back four of Johnston, Carter Vickers, a new quality signing, and Tierney with Schmeichel behind them. That's a defense capable of holding its own at Champions League level, but if we go into Europe without that center back, it could be a rough ride. Central midfield is probably where we look the most stacked at the moment. You've got Callum McGregor, still the heartbeat of the team, and if we can hold on till Rio had it, that's massive. Add in Benjamin Negrin, who's only just getting going but already looks class. And that's a midfield three that can dominate games. Negrin in particular, there's something about him. Technically sharp, good engine, and he's only going to get better. Beyond that, you've got the likes of Paulo Bernardo, Odin, Thiago Holm, and Matt O'Reilly still in the mix, and they'll be pushing for minutes. All three showed flashes last season. Bernardo, for instance, is captain of Portugal's under-21s. That's no small feat. The challenge now is turning that promise into performances week in, week out. Same with Holm. There's a player in there, but he needs consistency. So in short, if we don't lose anyone, the midfield looks good, strong, versatile, no urgent business needed unless we get an unexpected departure. It's further forward where the real issues lie, the wide areas in particular. Jota is technically still around, but we all know not to count on him this season. If we get anything meaningful out of him late on, it'll be a bonus. So in the meantime, we need to plan as if he's not available. That means, at minimum, one winger needs to come in. Realistically, I'd say two. There's some depth. You've got Young, you've got Forrest, possibly Negrin can fill in out wide, but it's not enough. And none of those names scream Champions League quality starter. We need a right winger, absolutely no debate. Someone to replace Nicholas Kuhn, who just hasn't worked out. And on the left, maybe we can get creative, a loan deal with an option to buy, that sort of thing. But something needs done. The current options aren't going to cut it over the course of a full season, never mind in Europe. And then you've got the strikers. It's a weird one. We've technically got for options Johnny Kenny, Adam Ida, Shun Yamada, and Callum Wasson. But the truth is none of them have locked down that starting role yet. It's all a bit murky. Kenny's had a decent preseason and might be the most in form of the lot, but Ida's the one Rodgers probably trusts most when the real stuff kicks off. Then there's Yamada, who's a total unknown in this system. Maybe he explodes like Kyogo did, maybe not. We just don't know yet. And poor Callum Wasson, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up out on loan. It's not a knock on him. He's young, he needs game time, but right now he's looking like the fifth choice forward. And when the season gets going, that's a lonely place to be. Best case scenario, we get him into another Scottish Premiership side where he can play every week and come back stronger next year. So here's where I'm at. We need a starting center back, a starting right winger, maybe a left winger on loan, and a proper number 9. That's for signings, all first team ready, and if we land those, this squad could be something special. Miss even one, we're risking another season of patchwork solutions and missed opportunities. The clock's ticking, and the Champions League playoff is creeping closer. Right, let's keep this going, because time's moving fast and Celtic need to match that pace. We've touched on what the squad needs, the gaps that need filled. And now we've got to talk about the timelines and the reality of the Champions League qualifiers looming large on the horizon. This is not a drill. That playoff tie is right around the corner, and there's not a whole lot of wiggle room left. Here's the deal. We've got until Thursday, the 14th of August at 11 at night, Celtic Park time, to submit our main squad list for the playoff round. That's a hard UEFA deadline and you can't miss it, but there is a small twist here. UEFA do allow clubs to register to additional players after that deadline as long as it's done by 11 o'clock the night before the first leg of the playoff. So that's a bit of breathing room, but let's be honest. It's not ideal to be rushing in a new signing and then throwing them into a huge European match with no time to settle. It's far from perfect. The first leg of that tie will be either on the 19th or 20th of August, so you're looking at that final deadline being the 18th or 19th. Not much time at all. So in theory, we can still add last-minute names, but in practice the club should be aiming to get their business done well before that. The draw for the playoff round is on Monday the 4th of August. That's in just under 2 weeks. At that point, we'll know exactly who we're facing. And ideally, our new signings should already be betting in. We can't afford to be reacting to that draw. We've got to be ahead of it, and let's be real. The Champions League means money, prestige, and a proper test for the squad. Getting into the group stage is the target always, and the sooner we get the pieces in place to push for that, the better. It's not just about the cash, although that's obviously massive. It's about keeping players like Haddad McGregor and even Tierney motivated. They want to be playing at the top level. And if they feel like the club isn't serious about giving them the tools to compete, that's when heads start to turn. Now, speaking of the Champions League, the qualifying rounds are already underway, even if we've not kicked a ball yet. The second round of qualifying started this week, and it's full of the kind of clubs we might face. If they pull off an upset or two, it's early, but the path is starting to clear. The third round draw was made yesterday, and although we don't enter until the playoff, it gives us a glimpse of the names we could be up against. And it's a long list full of oars. Our FS or Malmo against Copenhagen, or Dita for example. Then you've got teams like Slovan Bratislava's Zrinjski Mostar, Ludogorets, Ferencváros, Dinamo Batumi, Maccabi Tel Aviv, all in the mix. And let's not forget clubs like Basel Bodo, Glimt and Sturm Graz are already through to the playoff round. Those are no mugs. In fact, some of those ties would be a proper test for us, especially if we don't get our business done in time. And crucially, there are a few teams we simply can't draw under UEFA rules. Copenhagen, Crvena Zvezda, Ferencváros, and Bodo Glimt, that's down to coefficients and seeding. But their presence in the earlier rounds affects who else we could get. For example, if Copenhagen beat Dita, that takes both Copenhagen and Malmo out of the picture for us. Same with Crvena Zvezda and Ferencváros. If they win, they eliminate the possibility of us facing their opponents, so it's a bit of a domino effect. The most likely teams we could face, probably Basel, Sturm Graz, or one of the smaller winners from the third round, like Slovan Bratislava or Karabakh. None of them are walkovers, and we've slipped up against lesser sides before. The key takeaway here is that the tie will be tough and we need to be ready. There's no hiding in these playoffs. If we want group stage football, we've got to go out and earn it. Now, while we're on the subject of transfers, there's been some quiet movement behind the scenes. Luis Palma's move to Lech Poznan was confirmed this week. It's a season-long loan with an option to buy. Interesting detail from their official site: he flew from Honduras straight to Poland via Amsterdam, which means, unless something's gone totally under the radar, he hasn't actually been back to Glasgow since the Gold Cup. That might suggest he knew this move was happening for a while. Either way, he's out the door for now, and that opens up another spot in those wide areas we talked about. Then there's Jude Bonner. Bit of a surprise this one. He's off to Ayr United. Hasn't been officially announced by them in the usual way, but he did play for them at the weekend and scored a cracking goal. Lovely right-footed curler into the top bin. And in his post-match interview, he confirmed the loan and mentioned that Brendan Rodgers and Scott Brown had spoken about the move before preseason even started. So that's been bubbling in the background for a while. Celtic can apparently recall him instantly if needed, which is a handy clause. Smart move gets him regular football and he'll be on our radar. Another possible loan departure is Kyle Ure, captain of our under-18s. Reports suggest Partick Thistle are keen to take him on loan for the season, with Mark Wilson, former Celt, managing them. The interesting thing here is that if he goes to Partick, we wouldn't be able to recall him quickly because we've already got that kind of deal in place with Ayr. You can't have to partnerships like that in the same league, so if Ure goes, he's there for the season. But based on what we saw from him in preseason, lovely left foot tidy on the ball, it might be a great chance for him to develop. Fingers crossed it works out. There's also been a wee whisper about a potential incoming, Mikuláš Balikwisha. His agent's been chatting to the press, saying the player's not closed off to the idea of moving to Celtic, but that the club haven't come forward yet. Now, reading between the lines, that sounds like the kind of move that's been talked about behind the scenes for ages but never quite happened. And you've got to ask, if Celtic were serious about it, why hasn't it already been done? The player's out of contract next summer and Wurt need the money, and he seems up for the move. On paper, this deal should be straightforward, but again, it's dragging on and you can't help but think Celtic might have their eyes on someone else. Maybe they're waiting for another target to become available. Or maybe they think Balikwisha isn't quite the right fit. Either way, if he was the guy, you'd expect to see him holding up the scarf by now. As always, we'll wait and see, but it's hard to shake the feeling that this one might fade out, like so many before it, and this is the part that frustrates so many fans. We've got money in the bank, we've got clear needs in the squad, and yet things seem to drag. Every window we find ourselves in the same position, wondering why deals take so long to complete. Is it a Celtic-specific problem, or is this just the nature of modern football? It's hard to say. But it does feel like we move slower than we Should, and when you're trying to build a team capable of going toe-to-toe in Europe, speed matters. Look, none of this is panic mode. Not yet. There's still time, but not much. And the margin for error is small. Get these next few weeks right and this could be the start of something exciting. Get it wrong, or just stand still, and we risk another season of wondering what might have been. The pieces are there, it's all about putting them together. While there's still time on the clock. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team, it's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers have been growing louder around Glasgow's East End, and the rumour mill is working overtime. Could it be? Is ODSONNE Edouard really on his way back to Celtic Park? The mere hint of the Frenchman's potential return has sent Hoops supporters into a frenzy, with social media alight and memories of his iconic goals flooding back. Like a green and white tidal wave, Edouard, who left Celtic in 2021 for Crystal Palace in the English Premier League, had firmly etched his name into club folklore during his time in the Hoops. From that dramatic debut goal against Hearts to netting the winner against Rangers at Ibrox, his flair, finesse, and coolness in front of goal made him a Parkhead darling. Now, a few seasons down south later, the buzz is that he might just be packing his bags for a return to where it all clicked. Sources close to the club have been cagey, with no official confirmation, but those in the know have pointed to sightings near Lennox Town and hints dropped in cryptic social media posts. Some say a meeting took place between Edouard's representatives and Celtic officials last week, while others suggest it's just fans dreaming during the summer lull. Still, the excitement is hard to ignore. What's adding fuel to the fire is the current Celtic setup under Brendan Rodgers, the very manager who brought Edouard to Glasgow in the first place. Rodgers is rumored to be keen on bolstering his attacking options after a mixed bag of results in preseason, and Edouard's name sits neatly atop that wish list. It all seems just a bit too poetic to be mere coincidence, whether it's fact or fantasy. One thing's clear. The mere suggestion of Edouard pulling on the green and white again has electrified the fan base. Parkhead's faithful are dreaming once more, and until the window slams shut, the possibility remains deliciously open. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.